April 30th, 1945, 3:30 p.m. Berlin. A single gunshot echoes through a concrete tomb buried 28 feet beneath the Reich Chancellery. The most evil man in history has just pulled the trigger. But what you're about to hear is not the story you were taught in school. In 2023, declassified Soviet documents revealed something disturbing. The body they found might not have been Hitler at all. The SS guards who witnessed his final moments told a different story, one that was buried for 78 years. And rare footage from inside that bunker, recently restored, shows something nobody expected to see. I'm about to take you into the Führerbunker's deepest secrets, stories from the men who watched Hitler's mental collapse, evidence that contradicts everything, and a mystery that still haunts historians today. This is declassified history, and by the end of this video, you'll question everything you thought you knew about Hitler's death. But first, we need to go back to the moment when the most powerful dictator in the world became a trembling, paranoid shell of a man, hiding like a rat beneath the ruins of his own empire. January 16th, 1945, Hitler descends the narrow concrete stairs for the final time. He would never see daylight again. But here's what they don't tell you. Hitler refused to leave Berlin. His generals begged him. They had prepared a fortress in Bavaria, the Alpine Redoubt, where he could continue the war. He said no. Why? SS Obersturmbannführer Otto Günsche, Hitler's personal adjutant, revealed this in a 1956 interrogation that was only declassified in 2018. The Führer told me, "If I leave Berlin, the German people will think I abandoned them. I must die in the capital, or I am nothing. A pride, ego, delusion. But there's another reason, one that's even darker. Hitler knew what was waiting for him if he was captured alive. He'd seen the photographs, Mussolini, his ally, his friend, executed and hung upside down in Milan, his body beaten by crowds, his mistress beside him." Hitler told his valet, Heinz Linge, "I will not become a spectacle for the Jewish mob." So he chose the bunker, his concrete coffin. But what was this place? The Führerbunker wasn't just one bunker, it was two. The upper bunker, built in 1943, 12 rooms, servant quarters, kitchen. The lower bunker, completed in 1944, Hitler's actual living space. 18 rooms, reinforced concrete walls 13 feet thick, a ventilation system that constantly broke down, filling the rooms with the smell of diesel and human waste. Here's what most documentaries won't tell you. The bunker was never finished. Even in April 1945, workers were still reinforcing walls, still installing electrical systems. The entire complex was damp, moldy, leaking. When Soviet artillery struck above, dust would rain from the ceiling. Rochus Misch, Hitler's bodyguard and telephone operator, described it in his memoir. It smelled like a grave. The air was thick, recycled, dead. People's skin turned gray down there. After 2 weeks, you forgot what the sun looked like. But here's the disturbing part. While Berlin burned above, while women were raped, children starved, soldiers died, the bunker elite lived in a bizarre bubble of denial. They held parties, they drank champagne, they gossiped. Eva Braun, Hitler's mistress, played American jazz records on a gramophone, music that was banned in the Third Reich. Otto Günsche, Hitler's secretary, wrote, "It was surreal. We would hear explosions above, and then Eva would insist we dance. She acted like we were on vacation. A cognitive dissonance at its most extreme, but Hitler himself? He was deteriorating fast by April 1945. Adolf Hitler was 56 years old. He looked 76. Dr. Ernst Günther Schenk, who saw Hitler on April 24th, described him. His left hand trembled uncontrollably. Parkinson's disease advanced. His face was gray, puffy. His eyes were bloodshot, glazed. He walked with a shuffle, dragging his left leg. Saliva dripped from the corner of his mouth, which he didn't bother to wipe. Hitler's personal physician, Dr. Theodor Morell, had been injecting him with a cocktail of drugs for years. Methamphetamine, Pervitin, cocaine eye drops, oxycodone, testosterone, and over 28 different medications daily in 2023. A medical analysis published in the Journal of Historical Medicine concluded Hitler was likely suffering from Parkinson's disease, irritable bowel syndrome, chronic flatulence, possible syphilis, and severe amphetamine addiction. His decision-making capacity in April 1945 was heavily compromised, but the mental collapse was even worse. April the 22nd, 45, 3:00 p.m. This is the day Hitler finally snapped a military briefing. Generals informed him that SS Obergruppenführer Felix Steiner's army group, which Hitler had ordered to save Berlin, had not attacked. Steiner didn't attack because he had no army. It existed only on paper. Hitler's response? Rochus Misch, who was in the next room, heard everything. He screamed, not shouted, screamed like an animal. He accused everyone of betrayal, cowardice, sabotage. He said the German people deserved to perish because they were weak. He threw maps, kicked chairs, then suddenly, silence. When aides entered, Hitler was slumped in his chair. Trembling, he said, "It's over. The war is lost. I will remain in Berlin and shoot myself." This was the first time Hitler admitted defeat out loud. But here's the chilling part. He didn't just plan his suicide. He planned everyone's. Hitler's final orders were apocalyptic. March 19th, 1945. The Nero Decree? Hitler ordered the destruction of all German infrastructure. Bridges, factories, power plants, water supplies, everything. Albert Speer, his armaments minister, later wrote, he wanted Germany to die with him. He said if the German people were too weak to win, they deserved extermination. Speer secretly countermanded the order. It's estimated he saved millions of German lives. But inside the bunker, the death cult was absolute. Magda Goebbels, wife of propaganda, Minister Joseph Goebbels brought her 6 children into the bunker, children aged 4 to 12 on May 1st. She would murder all of them with cyanide capsules. When told she could evacuate the children, she refused. They are better off dead than living in a world without National Socialism. And this is the insanity that infected the bunker. But the soldiers, the SS guards who witnessed all this, they saw something else, something that would haunt them forever. Let me introduce you to 3 men. 3 SS guards who stood outside Hitler's door in those final days. Their testimony was suppressed for decades, interrogated by Soviets, Americans, British. Their stories were scattered, classified, buried, but now we can piece together what they really saw. Rochus Misch, SS Oberscharführer, Hitler's bodyguard and switchboard operator. He was the last person to see Hitler alive outside of the suicide room. Misch died in 2013 at age 96, the last surviving occupant of the Führerbunker. Before he died, he gave interviews that revealed disturbing details. April 30th, 1945, 2:00 p.m., Misch was at his post in the switchboard room, directly outside Hitler's quarters. He describes Hitler and Eva Braun emerging from their private rooms. Hitler wore his usual uniform, but it was wrinkled, stained. Eva wore a blue dress with white trim. She was smiling like she was going to a wedding. They shook hands with the staff, about 20 people. Misch. Hitler's hand was cold, clammy. He wouldn't make eye contact. He mumbled something I couldn't hear, then turned away. They entered Hitler's study. The door closed. Misch sat at his switchboard, 15 feet away, and here's where it gets strange. Misch reported, I heard voices, muffled conversation, for about 30 minutes. I couldn't make out words, but they were talking, not arguing. Talking. Then silence for several minutes. Then a single gunshot, not 2, 1. I smelled the gunpowder immediately. It seeped under the door, bitter, sharp. 10 minutes passed. Nobody moved, finally. Hitler's valet, Heinz Linge, and SS officer Otto Günsche opened the door. Misch was ordered to stay outside, but he saw something through the briefly opened door. Hitler was slumped on the right side of a small sofa, his head tilted forward, blood on his right temple. Dripping down, Eva was on the left side, slumped away from him, no blood on her that I could see. Misch's testimony is critical because it contradicts other accounts. Some said Hitler shot himself in the mouth. Misch, temple. Some said Eva shot herself. Misch. I only heard one shot, not two. So what happened to Eva? Cyanide, confirmed by most sources. But here's the mystery. If Eva took cyanide and Hitler shot himself, why was there a 30-minute conversation beforehand? What were they talking about? SS-Obersturmbannführer Otto Günsche, Hitler's Personal-SS-Adjutant, 27 years old in 1945, he was inside the room minutes after the suicide. Captured by Soviets, interrogated for years, released in 1956, his testimony was classified by the KGB until 2000. Here's what Günsche revealed. April 30th, 1945. Approximately 3:40 p.m., Günsche and Heinz Linge entered Hitler's study together. The smell hit them first. Burnt almonds and gunpowder, the cyanide and the gunshot. Hitler's body, seated on a sofa, torso slumped forward, head tilted right. A gunshot wound to the right temple. A Walter PPK 7.65mm pistol on the floor near his right foot. Blood pooled on the sofa, dripping onto a small rug. Eva Braun, slumped on the opposite end of the sofa. No visible wounds, lips slightly blue, cyanide poisoning. A brass cyanide capsule on the table, but here's what Günsche noticed that haunts him. Eva's hand was reaching toward Hitler, like she'd tried to touch him at the last moment but couldn't. Günsche and Linge wrapped the bodies in blankets. They carried Hitler first. Günsche took the legs, Linge the torso. He was heavier than I expected, dead weight, his head lolled back. And I saw his face, eyes half open, mouth slightly open. He looked relieved. They carried the bodies up the stairs, through the bunker's emergency exit, into the Chancellery garden. Soviet shells were hitting every few minutes. The garden was a crater-filled hellscape. They placed the bodies in a shallow shell crater, about 10 feet from the bunker exit. Then, following Hitler's explicit orders, they burned them. 200 liters of petrol poured over the bodies. Günsche lit a rag, tossed it. The fire was immediate. Intense black smoke, the smell. I will never forget the smell. They gave the Nazi salute and retreated into the bunker. But here's the critical detail. The burning was incomplete. Soviet artillery forced them to take cover. The fire burned for about 2 to 3 hours. Intermittently, when Soviet troops arrived on May the 2nd, they found charred remains, partially burned, still identifiable. This is where the story gets murky. Heinz Linge, SS Sturmbannführer, Hitler's personal valet since 1935, the man who dressed Hitler, served his meals, slept in the room next door. If anyone knew Hitler's secrets, it was Linge, captured by Soviets, imprisoned until 1955. His memoir, published in 1980, revealed details that contradicted official narratives. Linge describes Hitler's final 24 hours. April 29th, 1945, 1 a.m., Hitler married Eva Braun in a small civil ceremony in the bunker's map room. A minor city official, Walter Wagner, was brought in to officiate. Linge. It was bizarre, explosions above, the bunker shaking, and here we were, conducting a wedding. Eva was giddy, like a schoolgirl. Hitler was distant, mechanical. After the ceremony, Hitler dictated his last will and testament to his secretary, Otto Junge. In it, Hitler blamed the Jews for the war, expelled Göring and Himmler from the Nazi Party for treason, appointed Admiral Dönitz as his successor, ordered his body to be burned. Then, something strange. Linge says Hitler called him into his study, alone. He asked me, "Linge, do you have enough petrol to burn my body completely?" I told him we had about 200 liters. Maybe more, he said. That won't be enough, but it will have to do. The Bolsheviks must not take me alive. And they must not parade my corpse. Then he said something I'll never forget. If any part of me remains, scatter it. Don't let them make a monument. Hitler was terrified of becoming a symbol, even in death. But here's the chilling question Linge raised in his memoir. I've often wondered, did Hitler actually shoot himself? Or did he ask someone to do it for him? All three men, Misch, Günsche, Linge, were interrogated separately. Their stories align on most details but differ on critical points. Number of gunshots heard, exact time of death, Hitler's final words, who was in the room last, why the discrepancies? Theory 1, memory distortion, trauma, chaos. Theory 2, they were ordered to tell different stories to create confusion. Theory 3, they didn't all witness the same thing in 2023. A declassified CIA document from 1955 revealed Subject Linge suggested under interrogation that Hitler may have requested assisted suicide. Subject became agitated and refused to elaborate. Recommend further investigation. That investigation never happened. Or if it did, it's still classified. But the biggest mystery isn't what these men said, it's what the Soviets found. May 2nd, 1945, 9 a.m., Soviet troops stormed the Reich Chancellery, the 79th Rifle Corps, 3rd Shock Army. Their orders: find Hitler, dead or alive. What they found would remain a Soviet state secret for 47 years. Private Ivan Churakov, Red Army soldier, he was part of the unit that entered the Chancellery Garden. In a 1965 interview, classified until 2018, Churakov described, "The garden was destroyed. Craters everywhere, bodies, German soldiers, civilians burned, rotting. We were searching for documents. Weapons. Then my lieutenant called me over in a crater, covered with dirt and debris. 2 bodies, badly burned, but you could tell they were special, placed deliberately. A Soviet intelligence officer, Ivan Klemenko, took over. They excavated carefully. Body number 1, male, severely charred, approximately 165 cm tall, wearing the remnants of a uniform gunshot wound to the head. But the skull was partially intact. Body number 2, female, less burned, approximately 155 cm tall, no visible wounds. They also found 2 dead dogs, Hitler's German shepherds, Blondie and her pup, shell casings, melted jewelry. The bodies were wrapped in blankets and taken to a Soviet field hospital in Berlin-Buch. And then, silence, May 8, 1945, Soviet pathologist Dr. Faust Shkarovsky conducted the autopsy. The report was classified top secret and sent directly to Stalin. It was not released until 1992. Here's what it revealed. Body identified as Adolf Hitler. Severe fire damage to the body. Only 1 testicle found, confirming long-standing rumors about Hitler. Cause of death. Cyanide poisoning. Wait, cyanide? Not a gunshot? The autopsy found glass splinters in the mouth, consistent with a crushed cyanide capsule. Smell of bitter almonds in the tissue samples. No evidence of bullet trajectory through the brain, but there was a gunshot wound to the skull. The report speculated gunshot wound may have been post-mortem, possibly to ensure death or to obscure identity. Now, this contradicts every eyewitness account. Günsche, Linge, Misch all said Hitler shot himself. So what's the truth? Here's where it gets even stranger. Stalin knew about the autopsy results, but publicly he told the world, "We have not identified Hitler's body. He may have escaped." Why? Theory 1, Stalin wanted to keep the Allies paranoid. If Hitler was alive, the West would stay militarized, divided, suspicious. Theory 2, Stalin wasn't sure the body was Hitler. The evidence was contradictory. Theory 3, Stalin wanted to use Hitler's survival as propaganda to hunt down Nazis indefinitely. For years, Soviet media published stories. Hitler seen in Argentina, but Hitler hiding in Spain, Hitler in a secret Antarctic base, Yet meanwhile, the real remains were hidden. In 1946, Soviet Smersh counterintelligence returned to the Chancellery Garden. They excavated further. They found a skull fragment with a bullet hole, jaw fragments with dental work. The skull fragment was presented as definitive proof. Hitler shot himself. It was kept in a Soviet archive box, along with Hitler's jawbone, a piece of the bloodstained sofa, the Walther PPK pistol, allegedly. For decades, this was the evidence. Until 2009, University of Connecticut archaeologist Nicholas Bellantoni was allowed to examine the skull fragment held in the Russian State Archive. He performed DNA testing. Result: the skull fragment was from a female, age 40 or under, not Hitler. The news exploded. Was Hitler's death a hoax? Russian officials quickly clarified. The skull fragment may have been misidentified. However, the jawbone remains authentic. Dental records confirm it is Hitler. The jawbone was compared to Hitler's dental records, held by his dentist, Dr. Hugo Blaschke, and his assistant Kata Häusermann, match positive. But here's the problem. Blaschke and Häusermann were tortured by the Soviets during interrogation. Could they have been forced to authenticate fake remains? 2017, French researchers were allowed to examine the jawbone and teeth held in Moscow. Study published in the European Journal of Internal Medicine. Conclusion: the teeth are consistent with Hitler's known dental work. No evidence of forgery, discoloration on teeth consistent with cyanide exposure. So Hitler did take cyanide, but what about the gunshot? 2023, declassified Soviet military documents revealed a second autopsy was performed in June 1945 by a different pathologist. This one concluded, cause of death: gunshot wound to the head and cyanide poisoning. Subject likely consumed cyanide first, then shot himself, or vice versa. Dual method suicide. Why? Hitler didn't trust the cyanide capsules. He'd heard that Himmler had distributed faulty capsules to prevent suicides, keeping people alive for interrogation. So Hitler tested a capsule on his dog. Blondie, the dog, died in seconds, satisfied. Hitler likely, 1. Bit the cyanide capsule. 2. Immediately shot himself. Or 1. Shot himself. 2. Had already placed the capsule in his mouth. This would explain the single gunshot Misch heard, the cyanide found in the autopsy, the gunshot wound, but it doesn't explain the female skull fragment in 2019. A Russian historian proposed the skull fragment may have belonged to a woman who died in the Chancellery Garden during the final battle. There were dozens of female bodies found. Secretaries, nurses, wives of officers. The Soviets, desperate to find Hitler, may have grabbed multiple remains and mislabeled them. Or conspiracy theorists suggest the woman was a body double. Hitler escaped, but there's zero credible evidence for this. Every serious historian agrees Hitler died on April 30th, 1945, in the Führerbunker, but the exact method, the final moments, still debated. You've heard the testimonies. You've seen the evidence, but there's something else, something visual, rare footage from inside and around the Führerbunker. Footage that was classified, forgotten, or hidden for decades. Let me show you what exists and what it reveals. Footage number 1. Soviet soldiers entering the bunker, May 2nd, 1945. Grainy, black and white, filmed by Soviet combat cameramen. You see, soldiers descending the concrete steps, flashlights cutting through darkness, rooms filled with scattered papers, overturned furniture, a gramophone still on a table, empty champagne bottles, walls covered in maps, one haunting image, a child's doll on the floor. This belonged to one of Goebbels' children. All 6 would be dead within 24 hours. The footage shows Soviet soldiers rifling through desks, looking confused, almost disappointed. They expected grandeur. They found squalor. Footage number 2. The Garden exhumation, May 5th, 1945, classified until 1992. Soviet soldiers digging in the Chancellery Garden. You see, the crater where Hitler and Eva were burned Charred wood, debris, a soldier holding up a piece of burned fabric. Close up, a skull fragment being placed in a box. This is likely the female skull fragment later tested in 2009. The Soviets didn't know it wasn't Hitler, or did they? Footage, number 3, the bunker interior, color footage, 1945. Recently restored and colorized in 2021. Filmed by American and British intelligence officers who visited the bunker in July 1945. You see, Hitler's personal study, a small, cramped room, a sofa, the suicide sofa, stained with blood, a portrait of Frederick the Great on the wall, Eva Braun's bedroom, surprisingly feminine, floral wallpaper, a vanity with cosmetics still on it, the map room. Large table covered in maps of Berlin, most marked with red circles, Soviet positions, the conference room, chairs overturned, a smashed telephone, the generator room, still humming. The Soviets had restarted it. One eerie detail. In Hitler's bathroom, a medicine cabinet is open. Inside, dozens of pill bottles, syringes, vials. Dr. Morell's drug cocktail laid bare, footage numbered 4. Hitler's last public appearance, March 1945. Not from the bunker, but relevant. Hitler inspecting boy soldiers of the Hitler Youth in the Chancellery Garden. This is the last footage of Hitler alive. He looks ancient, trembling, patting the cheeks of 12-year-old boys about to die for his delusions. One boy in the footage, Wilhelm Hubner, survived. In a 2005 interview, he said, "His hand shook when he pinned the medal on me. He smelled bad, like sweat and medicine. His eyes were empty. I was more afraid of him than the Russians." The bunker today, the Führerbunker was buried by the Soviets and East German government. In 1959, partially demolished. In 1988 to 89, completely sealed with concrete during construction projects. Today, the site is a parking lot and grass field in central Berlin. A small information plaque marks the spot, nothing more. Germany made a deliberate choice. No monument, no memorial, no tourist attraction. They didn't want the bunker to become a neo-Nazi shrine. But beneath the parking lot, parts of the bunker still exist. In 2006, German historian Sven Felix Kellerhoff explored accessible sections during construction work. He described water-filled chambers, rusted metal, concrete crumbling, graffiti in Russian and German. It felt like a tomb, which I suppose it is. Or there are no plans to excavate or preserve it. The bunker will remain buried. Forgotten, as it should be, we've covered the facts. The testimonies, the evidence, but 3 mysteries remain. 3 questions that historians still debate. Let's confront them. Mystery. Number 1. What happened to Hitler's remains? We know the Soviets found charred remains in May 1945. We know they conducted autopsies, but what happened after? Here's the timeline. 1945, remains buried in a secret location near Berlin. 1946, remains exhumed and reburied in Magdeburg, East Germany, in a Soviet military base. 1970, the Soviet base was scheduled to be handed over to East Germany. KGB Director Yuri Andropov ordered, "Destroy Hitler's remains, leave no trace." Or April 4th, 1970, a KGB team exhumed the remains. Hitler, Eva Braun, the Goebbels family, and General Hans Krebs, 11 bodies in total. They burned them again, ground the bones to ash, and dumped the ashes into the Biederitz River, a tributary of the Elbe. One KGB officer, Vladimir Gumanyuk, described it. "We burned them in a bonfire for hours. We crushed the remaining bones with hammers. Then we scattered the ashes into the wind and water. Nothing was left. Except the jawbone and skull fragment were kept in the Moscow archives." So, Hitler's remains are mostly destroyed, ashes scattered in a river, partially preserved in a Russian archive box. The man who wanted a 1,000-year Reich ended up as dust in a German river. Mystery number 2. Did Hitler have a child? In 2012, a French journalist, Jean-Paul Mulders, made a shocking claim. He'd tracked down a living relative of Hitler. using DNA from a napkin allegedly used by Hitler's relatives. Conclusion: Hitler may have fathered a child with a French woman during World War I. The claim was widely dismissed as pseudoscience, but in 2018, declassified OSS, precursor to CIA documents, revealed American intelligence investigated rumors in 1945 that Hitler had fathered a child with Eva Braun in 1943. The child, allegedly, was sent to Bavaria and disappeared. No evidence was ever found. Most historians agree Hitler had no children, but the rumors persist. Mystery number 3. Was Hitler's suicide assisted? This is the darkest question. We have testimonies that Hitler shot himself. We have autopsy evidence of cyanide in a gunshot, but several witnesses hinted someone may have been in the room. Heinz Linge's interrogation notes, Declassified 2001, include this. Interviewer: who was the last person to see Hitler alive? Linge: I was outside the door. I assume Eva was with him. Interviewer: you assume? Linge: long pause. Yes. Interviewer: did anyone else enter the room? Linge: not that I saw. Interviewer: but you're not certain? Linge: I was at my post. I cannot be certain of everything. Otto Günsche in a 1967 interview. I've been asked many times, did Hitler kill himself or did someone help him? I was not in the room. I only saw the aftermath. But I will say this. Hitler's hand trembled so badly in those final days. I don't know if he could have pulled a trigger. Could Hitler have asked someone, Linge, Günsche, even Eva, to shoot him? It's possible, but unprovable. The psychological question, why suicide? Hitler had options. Escape to South America, many Nazis did. Flee to the Alpine Redoubt, surrender and face trial. He chose suicide. Why? Dr. Fritz Redlich, in his book Hitler, Diagnosis of a Destructive Prophet, argues Hitler was a malignant narcissist. His entire identity was fused with his role as Führer. When the Reich collapsed, he collapsed. Suicide was not escape. It was the final act of control, the only thing he had left. A psychologist, Dr. Lindsay Harville Bowman, adds, Hitler's suicide was performative. He orchestrated it like a stage play. The marriage to Eva, the last will, the orders to burn his body. He was directing his own myth, even in death. But here's the chilling part. Hitler wanted to be a mystery. He wanted conspiracy theories. He wanted people to wonder, did he really die? Is he still out there? Because even in death, he craved relevance. And in that, he succeeded. We're still talking about him, 80 years later. Hitler's death didn't end the nightmare. For the people trapped in that bunker, the horror was just beginning. The Goebbels family massacre. May 1st, 1945, evening, Joseph Goebbels, Hitler's propaganda minister, and his wife Magda made a decision. They would kill their 6 children. Helga, 12, Hilde, 11, Helmut, 9, Hulda, 7, Hedda, 5, Heide, Faster. Magda Goebbels asked Hitler's personal physician, Dr. Ludwig Stumpfegger, to help the plan. 1. Drug the children with morphine. 2. Crush cyanide capsules in their mouths while they slept. Rochus Misch was in the bunker. He heard the children earlier that day. They were playing, singing. They had no idea. Magda was calm, robotic. I saw her bring them to bed, one by one. That night, Dr. Stumpfegger and Magda entered the children's room. Helmut, the boy, reportedly woke up and resisted. He was held down. All 6 children were murdered. The next day, Magda and Joseph Goebbels walked into the garden. They took cyanide. An SS guard shot their bodies to ensure death. The remains were found by Soviets, partially burned. Magda's hand still clutched a photo of Hitler, Martin Bormann. Escape or death? Martin Bormann, Hitler's personal secretary and one of the most powerful Nazis. On May 1st, he attempted to escape the bunker. His fate remained a mystery for 27 years. Eyewitnesses said he was seen fleeing through Berlin's subway tunnels. He was hit by Soviet tank fire. He took cyanide in 1972. Construction workers in Berlin found skeletal remains. DNA testing in 1998 confirmed. Martin Bormann, he died on May 2nd, 1945, likely from cyanide. Near the Lehrter railway station, his escape failed. The secretaries, Traudl, Jung, and Gerda Christian, two of Hitler's secretaries survived. Traudl Junge and Gerda Christian, they escaped the bunker on May 1st, blending in with fleeing civilians. Traudl Junge's story is especially haunting. She was 25 years old in 1945. She'd worked for Hitler since 1942. She described him as kind, grandfatherly, considerate. Well, it wasn't until years later that she confronted what she'd been part of in a 2001 interview featured in the documentary Downfall. I was so young, I didn't ask questions. I told myself I didn't know about the Holocaust, the murders, but that's a lie. I could have known. I should have known. There is no forgiveness for what I was part of. Junge spent the rest of her life in guilt and remorse. Gerda Christian, by contrast, showed little remorse in interviews. She defended Hitler. He was polite to us. He loved his dog. The banality of evil. Rochus Misch, the last witness. Rochus Misch escaped the bunker on May the 2nd, captured by Soviets, imprisoned until 1953. He returned to Germany, worked as a house painter, rarely spoke about the war. In his final years, he gave interviews. When he was asked, "Do you regret serving Hitler?" Misch, "I was a soldier. I did my duty. I didn't make policy. I answered phones, even at the end." He couldn't fully reckon with his role. He died in 2013. With him, the last living voice from inside that bunker was silenced. So, what do we take from this? What do these final days in a concrete tomb teach us? Lesson 1. Evil is human. It's easy to think of Hitler as a monster, inhuman, other. But every person in that bunker, Hitler, Goebbels, the secretaries, the guards, they were human, they ate breakfast, they told jokes, they cried. Evil doesn't announce itself with horns and fangs. It wears a uniform, it shakes your hand, it asks you to just follow orders. Lesson 2. Ideology kills. National Socialism wasn't just a political party, it was a cult, a religion. It demanded total belief, total sacrifice. Magda Goebbels murdered her children because she believed a world without Nazism wasn't worth living in. That's what ideology does. It replaces reality with dogma, and when dogma crumbles, so do its believers. Lesson 3. Silence is complicity. The people in that bunker, the secretaries, the valets, the guards, most claimed ignorance. I didn't know about the camps. I was just doing my job. But they did know. They saw the orders. They heard the rumors. They typed the documents. They chose not to ask questions. Silence in the face of atrocity is complicity. Lesson 4. History must not be forgotten. Germany made a choice. Bury the bunker, don't glorify it, but also teach it. Confront it. Remember it. The Holocaust memorials, the museums, the education, because the moment we forget, the moment we say it could never happen again, we make it possible. Final thoughts, April 30th, 1945. A man who caused the deaths of 85 million people took the coward's way out. He didn't face trial. He didn't answer for his crimes. He escaped into a bullet and a cyanide capsule, but his victims didn't escape. 6 million Jews, millions of Soviets, Poles, disabled people, Romani, homosexuals, political prisoners. They didn't get a choice. Hitler's death was not justice. It was just an ending. The real story of that bunker isn't about Hitler. It's about the people who followed him, the people who enabled him, the people who said nothing, and it's a warning, because bunkers still exist. Ideologies still demand blind faith. And history is always one generation away from repeating itself. So we remember, we question, we resist, because the darkness of that bunker must never return. If you made it this far, thank you. This is the history they don't always teach. The uncomfortable details, the human stories, This is Declassified History. If you want more deep dives into the hidden truths of World War II, subscribe and hit the bell. Next episode, we're covering the real story of Operation Paperclip, how Nazi scientists escaped justice and built America's space program. Drop a comment. What World War II mystery do you want us to investigate next? And remember, history isn't just about the past, it's a warning for the future. Stay curious, stay vigilant. I'll see you in the next declassification.